comic book icon hangs 10 in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. I'm Richard Roeper, filling in for Roger this week as the film critic for the Village Voice chain of newspapers, and he's the host of HD Net's Higher Definition. Robert Wolanski. What's going on, dude?
Thanks for having me. I'm glad you finally got to the W's.
You figured out we're doing it alphabetically.
Well, hey, it had to be that.
Next week, Zuzu's Petals. Okay, our first movie, though, is Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. It's funnier and splashier than the original, but I still can't quite recommend it. For me, the Fantastic Four always kind of seem like AAA superheroes compared to big leaguers like Spider-Man and Batman. Even their catchphrases are lame. Flame on and it's clobbering time, please. There's a lot of domestic comedy in this version, with Jessica Alba's Sue Storm and Ioan Gruffudd's Reed Richards gearing up for the wedding of the century.
No. We're not postponing anything, not this time. This is gonna be the wedding you've always dreamed of, and I'm not gonna let anything get in the way of that. Not even the mysterious transformation of matter at the subatomic level.
It's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me.
Of course, Reed is also Mr. Fantastic, which kind of sounds like a character in Torch Song Trilogy, but the real Torch here is Johnny Storm, a.k.a. the Human Torch. His encounter with the mysterious Silver Surfer produces some unexpected side effects and special effects.
No, Brad!
Hey, it's me! I'm back! Oh my God! Come on!
As for the so-called plot, Lawrence Fishburne voices the Silver Surfer, who's an agent of destruction for a giant energy force that eats other planets, something like that.
Why are you destroying our planet?
I have no choice.
Fishburne's Silver Surfer sounds like he's spouting outtakes from the Matrix movies, and the return of Dr. Doom is repetitive and boring, and that big giant planet of destruction is just a special effects creation, not a real villain. Everything is so light and breezy that when it appears as if one beloved character has died, there's not a whiff of emotional resonance. So for me, Robert, it's a mild thumbs down on this one.
I cannot believe that my first movie on this experience, I have to defend Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Bring it on, babe.
You know, first of all, they are not a AAA bunch of superheroes. They are major leagues. They are the first superhero team. Jack Kirby, Stan Lee's creations. The Silver Surfer, an iconic character, as you said in the introduction. One of the great characters. Doesn't get the best treatment here. You don't really understand who he is or what he's about or what he does. He just looks real shiny in this particular
Well, that's
film.
the thing. I mean, you know, fine, you know, I respect the comic book history of these characters, and I know that a lot of fans love them, but I think the cinematic tribute so far, Robert, the two movies, they've kind of made them a little too sitcom-y and a little too wisecracking.
But that's what I like about them.
Know?
What I kind of like about these, they don't take themselves as seriously as the Superman films, certainly as the recent Batman film took itself. Fantastic Four, it's a goofy movie. It's a goofy comic book. These are superheroes. This is pop culture silliness.
I get what you're saying, and as I said, I did like this one better than the original, and there are some funny exchanges, but then we are going to get these, you know, these big speeches from the Silver Surfer about, you know, making choices than sacrificing lives, and we do think a character is died.
It's
not. It's more than 10 seconds of it. And I think if you're gonna go for comedy all the way. I think, you know, it's strange that maybe by the third Fantastic Four I might be on board. I do think this one has a little more spirit and energy than the first. I thought the first one was just awful.
What I don't understand is why they haven't decided to go ahead and just make them a TV series, because it plays like a big screen sitcom, but I think that's what most movies play like these days.
Well, I want more for our viewers for their $10. I think they deserve a little more punch. If it's going to be funny, be funnier.
The humor's good.
It's you know, I'm here on it, but I can't do it. And the Human Torch thinks he's funnier than he is. He's like a third act at the Laugh Factory at midnight. He thinks he's funnier than
he's a lot like me, for that matter.
Maybe so.
Next up is the latest incarnation of tweener sleuther Nancy Drew, the legendary, or at least long-surviving creation of writer Mildred Wirt Benson from 1930. To me, alas, Nancy Drew will always be Pamela Sue Martin, who played the small-town cop without a badge on the 1970s TV series, in which she always wound up entangled in a mystery and mysterious threesome with the Hardy Boys. But this time around, she is played by plucky, spunky, and Natalie-tailored Emma Roberts. Yes, Julia's niece, and the star of Nickelodeon's Unfabulous.
Hold on, Nancy, we got the fire department here.
That's all right, Chief. I'll be down in a jiffy.
Here, Nancy abandons life in her tree-lined Neverland for the grimy digs of Hollywood. where Daddy Drewist, played by Tate Donovan, has taken a summer gig working for a lawyer who looks a whole lot like Barry Bostwick. Nancy and her pops, apparently blessed with movie star money, move into the decrepit but nonetheless Tony digs of a dead movie star, Delia Draycott, played by Mulholland Drive's Laura Herring, who is left behind, of course, a secret fortune and a secret daughter. As Nancy uncovers the truth about Delia's deeds, however, her own life is put into peril.
I wonder who tried to kill us. Yeah, I'm wondering that too. In fact, I'm kind of freaking out about it. Well, usually when someone tries to kill me, it's because I'm onto something. You're just not like the other girls, Nancy.
That is Josh Flitter as Corky, one of the myriad annoyances in a movie that plays like an ill-conceived cross between Mean Girls and Murder, She Wrote. This is the perfect summertime flick for 12-year-old girls who have always wanted to see a Sunset Boulevard-tinged rehab of a 77-year-old character, now played by Eric Roberts' little girl. Richard, I got to give this the thumbs down.
You know, I'm giving it thumbs up for a lot of the reasons you say. This is a strange movie, man. But I mean, look at that little Emma Roberts. She's so adorable, and I think she's a star in the making. I like the fact that this thing. I like. Hey, look, you're the guy that's talking about a threesome between Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, but we don't have time to get into that right now.
I hear Parker Stevenson really dug him.
I'm telling you, there's some weird stuff going on here. In fact, there's at one point it looks like they're paying tribute to Pulp Fiction because she performs like an emergency tracheotomy on a girl who's choking, and I just thought it's so weird. And I like the strange thing where it's like this little girl seems to exist in the 1950s with her wardrobe and her idea of what a birthday party should be, but she's 16 or 17 years old, so and everyone's looking at her like she's crazy, but I think they have fun with that. And
yeah, but we saw that in the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, exactly. It reminded me of the Brady Bunch movie. So they have fun with the character, but I still think, as you say, I think some 12-year-old girls were like it. It's a very niche film, and there aren't a lot of movies for girls of that age that aren't too young or too sophisticated, and it's got a lot of fun energy, and it's got a certain kind of inspired loopiness that I found entertaining, and trust me, going into this, I was not that thrilled about having to see a Nancy Drew movie.
And I was not that thrilled coming out of it.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, for what it is, and it's a very strange little takeoff on this, I kind of admired it, so I got to give it thumbs up, my friend.
I think it's for the homeschooled 12-year-old.
Maybe so. All right, later in the show, John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson star in 1408. Next, Angelina Jolie plays Marianne Pearl in A Mighty Heart.
I am not terrorized, and you can't be terrorized.
And if you could say one thing to your husband now, well, what would you tell him?
I love you.
Angelina Jolie gives one of the most commanding and moving performances of her career in A Mighty Heart. It opens next week, and this is an early review. This is one of the best movies I've seen this year. It's a tricky and sensitive part for Jolie. She's playing Marianne Pearl, the pregnant wife of kidnapped Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl. Director Michael Winterbottom handles the material with great respect and yet manages to deliver a tense thriller.
Why did your husband have to meet with these people?
He's a journalist.
I don't think this is the business of a journalist.
Forgive me for correcting you, but it is absolutely the business of a journalist.
We follow Marianne as she fights through a maze of political, religious, ethnic, and social barricades in Pakistan, knowing that the longer her husband is gone, the more likely it is he will be killed.
Danny is missing. He may be able to help me find him. Okay? I need the name.
I promised him. If I give his name...
Do you understand? Do you understand that maybe you can make the difference of helping Danny or nobody finds him?
In one of the film's quieter and most emotionally resonant scenes, Marianne thanks the government officials, the journalists, and the friends who supported her.
The kidnappers, their point is to terrorize people, right? I am not terrorized, and you can't be terrorized. I am very grateful to all of you. Very, very grateful. So thank you.
This is a film that honors the memory of Daniel Pearl, pays tribute to the strength of his wife, and perfectly captures the insanely complicated politics of our 21st century world. Robert, for me, big thumbs up.
You know, I give it a thumbs up as well, but I give it a thumbs up mostly for her performance.
Okay.
I think she is remarkable in this. You forget that Angelina Jolie can really act when she tries.
Oh, absolutely.
You especially forget after those god-awful Tomb Raider films that there is something remarkable in what she is able to do. There is a fury, there is an intensity, there's just this sort of rawness that is always really out there with her. For a woman that larger than life, she's incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah, you know, you're so right about that, because I've seen some people saying, well, can we even accept Angelina Jolie playing a character because we see her so... Yes, of course you can. You can with any, I think, any larger-than-life international superstar, if they're talented enough. And in the first 5 minutes, you forget about all the Angelina Jolie tabloid stuff, and you concentrate on this great performance. Yeah, and I think the material is now used, but you're saying you have some problems with the film as a whole?
I think the problem is it becomes, for too often, especially in the second half, a procedural. I'm not a big fan of procedurals, especially ones in which you know the grim ending.
Right.
Something like United 93 proved you can make something incredibly, astoundingly artistic and chaotic and moving and gripping and thrilling out of really raw material that you don't want to go near by any stretch.
Well, I would agree with you that it's a quieter kind of tension in this film. I don't think he loses his way. And maybe it's just because I am a bigger fan of procedurals. I'm fascinated by films like this, and actually the video pick I'm going to be talking about later on in the show, that really go into the minutia if it's a fascinating enough case. And in this case, unfortunately, it was. So I think, you know, Winterbottom is an amazing filmaker, how he can just go into the streets of these cities and...
an amazing film.
Well, I mean, even his misfires, I think, are more interesting than a lot of
You're a big fan of Nine
films.
Songs, aren't you?
I'm a big fan. No, I'm not a big fan of Nine Songs, but I'm a big fan of Michael Winterbottom, and I am a huge fan of Angelina Jolie's work. I think it's Oscar nomination time for her for this performance.
We shouldn't, by the way, ignore Dan Futterman, who plays Daniel Pearl.
Yeah.
He's great in this. It's a small part, but it's a very important part. You need to be rooted in this. And he, of course, is the writer of Capote.
Yeah, talented guy.
Coming up next, John Cusack checks in, but he may never check out of room 1408.
Be sure to check out our new website for full-length video replays of each week's reviews 24 hours a day. Visit atthemoviestv.com, the online home of Ebert and Roeper.
I want you to steal the diamonds.
Okay, looking at movies now in theaters, all getting a thumbs up from me. George Clooney and a bunch of other guys in Ocean's 13. Shia LaBeouf and Jeff Bridges are the voices of Surf's Up. And Kevin Costner and Demi Moore in Mr. Brooks.
That got a thumbs up from you?
For, you know, it was sort of like the Nancy Drew thing. It was just so crazy and so inspired and so nutty. And the great performances from Costner and William Hurt. No?
That's what you said.
You're not feeling it, huh?
Let's talk about great performances.
All right.
Next up is an early review of 1408. Director Michael Hofstrom's adaptation of a little-known Stephen King short story about a writer in desperate need of a better travel agent. Actually, Mike Enslin, played by John Cusack, seeks out haunted hotels for his spooky travel guides to morbid motels and rest-in-peace stops off the interstate. After his own near-death experience on a surfboard, he finds himself in New York City's Dolphin Hotel in that infamous room, despite the repeated pleadings of hotel manager Mr. Olin, played by Samuel L. Jackson.
Do you know why I can stay in your spooky old room, Mr. Olin? Because I know that ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties don't exist. Even if they did, there's no God to protect us from them, is there?
So I can't talk you out of this.
I think we've reached an understanding.
Of course, if there were not strange goings-on in that room, it would not be much of a movie. And in no time, Mike is face to rotting face with those ghoulies and ghosties, including himself in a creepshow variation of the famous Harpo and Groucho Marx pantomime from Duck Soup. Despite eventually peddling dang near every single horror show convention, 1408 actually works for two reasons. One, Cusack is forced to perform a one-man show most of the movie, and he does a great job as the man who is either losing his mind or finding his soul.
Did you call the cops?
Yeah, they're at the hotel. Didn't you say the Dolphin?
Yes, 1408.
They're in 1408. The room's empty. Michael.
And two, Stephen King's enough of a real-world writer with heart to root the fantastic in the everyday. In this case, the sad everyday. The way a parent mourns a dead child, which is actually the biggest demon haunting Cusack's character. In the end, it turns out we are all haunted by and terrified of the very same thing, bad memories. Yeah. I gotta say, I give this a stunning, shocking, and very delighted thumbs up.
I'm gonna give it a thumbs up as well, and you're so right about Cusack. I think he's one of the most underrated actors around. And you're right, it's almost like a one-man show. Here you have a guy in a hotel room going through all this stuff, and he's just great. It's a riveting, you know, just a terrific performance. And Stephen King, yeah, there's more going on here. I mean, this isn't a horror movie about, you know, screams and yells. It's more like chills and little moments of revelation.
It's not gross at all. There's very little blood. In fact, the only time you really see blood is when it comes out of the walls or you see those old crime scene photos. You know, it's funny, I thought Stephen King was cannibalizing himself here. When I saw the trailers for this, I thought, well, this just looks like another Shining.
It's like The Shining, right?
But I gotta say, it was really resonant.
Yeah,
It's emotionally heartbreaking. When you have a kid and you see movies like these, yes, it's kind of cheap because they know, filmmakers know that when you have children, you automatically react to kids in peril or parents mourning a child.
Right.
And yet at the same time, it's just so resonant, it's so real, and it's so effective.
You know, you get a couple of those, we think it's the ending, and it's not really the ending, but they don't feel cheap. And then the actual ending, I thought, was just pitch perfect, the way the film ended.
The story was great. I think the film is even better.
Yeah, it's a terrific film. Okay, next is a horror spoof. It's called Fido. Let me say this about horror spoofs. They're usually pretty funny for about 6 minutes. Then we get the same jokes again and again, and lots of gruesome stuff that's supposed to make us groan and chuckle. In this case, I groaned a lot more than I chuckled. The big joke here is that the zombies can be tamed and domesticated. In the 50s suburbia of Fido, all the best families have at least one zombie working in the yard or serving dinner.
Could I speak to you in the kitchen?
Of course, dear.
Fido's a one-joke movie with some good performances, a few good gross-out moments, but it's not dark enough or sick enough to be a cult favorite. It's more of a curiosity piece. If you were flipping across the cable channels one night, it might hold your interest for 10 minutes, but after that, ho-hum, as a movie, thumbs down.
You know, I gotta say, you talk about this being one joke. It's actually literally one joke at the very, very, very end of Shaun of the Dead. After they get through the zombie crisis, they actually talk about the fact that they domesticate zombies. It's in the film for literally 13 seconds. And yet, it's an entire film here. I gotta say, the only thing I liked about this is the fact that Billy Connolly, who doesn't utter a word of dialogue, is very, very good. He's a warm actor to the point where you actually kind of care about this disgusting zombie. But,
Yeah,
you know,
didn't care much about him.
it's Pleasantville with zombies.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the screenplay to me, you know, it's just stretched and stretched, and they're trying to make a feature-length film out of it, and it's just not there.
I, quite frankly, thought this was going to go direct to video when I saw it on the film festival circuit. I cannot believe it's actually out.
Well, let's see if we can put a stop to it soon. Coming up next, Coldplay, Paul McCartney and David Bowie take center stage in the Thumbs Up video segment. But first, here's a look at what's coming up on next week's show.
I kill people for a living.
Amen.
I just had the weirdest dream. You know you're driving, right?
Looking at movies new on DVD, Reno 911 got a thumbs up, as did Miss Potter. Gray Matters, on the other hand, is one of the worst movies in the history of time. But I have a great video pick for you, my friend. Breach. Chris Cooper, in the real-life story of Robert Hansen, one of the most infamous spy cases in American history. And we were talking about procedurals with A Mighty Heart, and I thought Breach just step by step walked us through this very complicated story. And it was so well done, and for some reason, audiences just didn't check this out in theaters. Now it's out on DVD. I think it'll do very well on DVD.
Well, the studio did not treat it very well, for one thing.
Buried it.
And the great thing about the DVD, all the extra stuff, the Dateline, there's a lot of great stuff on the DVD.
A lot of great stuff on there.
Speaking of great extras, my video pick is called Glastonbury. Julian Temple's rock doc about the legendary and long-running Brit Rock Fest that over its 40 years has provided the oral canvas for naked hippies and muddy punks, which I believe was the name of your autobiography. It is a familiar feeling film, an updating of that warhorse Woodstock that spans the decades and genres, hence the appearances of everyone from Terry Reid to James Brown to Paul McCartney to Morrissey to the White Stripes. And it is as interested in the concert goers as the concert itself.
Have you been here all night?
I've been here since last Sunday.
This 2-disc edition is jam-packed with extended interviews and full-length performances. You want it to go on. And there is no mud, which is all by itself a bonus feature.
Okay, so Breach and Glastonbury are available now, and we'll be back to recap this week's show right after this.
Closed captioning for Ebert and Roeper is sponsored by...
Man has evolved to the point where he no longer needs to stand in line for tickets. The MovieTickets.card, available only at MovieTickets.com.
Okay, recapping the movies on this week's show. We split on Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. We split again on Nancy Drew. 2 thumbs up for A Mighty Heart. It opens next week. 2 thumbs up for 1408, also opening next week. And 2 thumbs down for Fido. Robert, thank you so much for joining me in the balcony. And as a parting gift, my friend, Roger Ebert's collection of reviews of movies that didn't quite get thumbs up. It's called Your Movie Sucks.
This is great. This
That's
is the
for
only
you.
reason I did the show, by the way, because I'm not going to go buy the book. So I'm glad I got this.
Nicely
And,
said.
it's been an honor, a thrill, a pleasure. And I do want to say to Roger, please, I can't wait till you're back sitting in this chair.
Thank you, Robert. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, that's it for this week. And until next week, the balcony is closed.
It's the extra creamy ice cream you don't have to feel guilty about. Double churn from Breyers.
Is today the day you show your dog how much you care? Ask your vet if HeartGuard Plus is right for your dog.
If you think a prune is a prune, you haven't tried new Sunsweet Ones.
How do you like the individual wrappers?
It's not dry at all. They're delicious.
New Sunsweet Ones. Bite for bite, even better than fresh fruit.
On DVD, the motion picture destined to become a fantasy classic. Bridge to Terabithia. Own it on DVD and Blu-ray June 19th.